everyone. Great to have you with us. It's a brand new edition of the MSG 150 at Home presented by Chase. Bill Pito, Alan Hahn, Steve Alaquette, Michelle Gingras, and Michelle having the dreaded neighbor issues, which we all have experienced. Michelle, we're very sorry.
Yeah, I won't share it just in case this poor man watches the MSG 150 later. But it is always interesting when you live in New York apartments and people have big windows. Let me just leave it at that.
As long as he's not in your shot.
Yeah, exactly. The camera's turned the other way. That was intentional.
The Friends episode. That's a Friends episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. You're right.
Valley's house is so big he doesn't have any neighbors.
I'm not responding to
that. Guys, during these times, we're taking care of those who are taking care of us. Madison Square Garden partnering with Chase to deliver takeout orders from local restaurants for frontline workers throughout the tri-state area. Thank you, as always, to our home team heroes. And the big story in sports continues to be the response to what's going to happen in terms of a return with the COVID-19 situation getting worse in parts of the country. And a number of baseball players have now opted out, including Ryan Zimmerman of the Nationals. He's a former All-Star, but he's made over $120 million in his career. Mike Leake, he's made a ton of money. Ian Desmond has made $80 million. He's a shortstop in his 30s. And I wonder, Steve, does the economics really determine the decision? And if you're a teammate of a guy that's made a ton of money and he doesn't want to play, what would your reaction be?
I'd play this hypothetical. Here's what I would do. If it was Alan Hahn that opted out, I would text him, Alan, what kind of fish are you? How would you respond to that, Hahn?
What kind of fish?
What kind of fish are you?
I'm a shark.
Oh, you're selfish. All right. Because anybody that does that is a selfish guy. He's already made his money. He's going to ruin the team culture. It's bad for everybody. It's
now,
bad.
Steve, they do point to family reasons for not playing. Let's give them that.
Now, look, when you're a professional athlete, in the beginning of your career, you're very excited. You're energetic. You're happy to be out there. You enter that second phase where you want to earn. Right now, you get to the third phase for some of these players that are opting out. They're in the entitlement phase, and that's a big problem for their team culture because those leaders aren't going to be leaders. Now, I'm talking from a player's perspective. That's the way we were. We have a sensitivity chip that's missing when you're playing. Unless you have your arm hanging off your body, get out there. That's the way we are. You're either hurt or you're injured. If you're hurt, you can play. If you're injured, you can't. Now, that's just the mindset of the locker room. That's the culture you have in pro sports within the player. I don't think that way anymore because I'm already past that stage. I'm 43 years old this year, and I've got wife and kids. So I've got a little more sensitivity to it now, guys, than I did as a player. But I'm just telling you what just the mindset of the players would be in the locker room.
So you think that this could come back for some of these guys? Now, it's not just baseball. I mean, we're seeing it happened elsewhere. In the NBA, you're starting to see player Avery Bradley's not going to play. The Lakers replace him with J.R. Smith. Now we're hearing a couple of Nets players have tested positive again. Spencer Dinwiddie, not sure if he's going to play. DeAndre Jordan said, I'm not going to play, and that's it. Now he's out. I mean, there's a lot of players. Wilson Chandler of the Nets, good friend of mine, he's also said the same thing. I'm not comfortable playing. I'm not going to play. He opted out. So, Valley, do you think that can affect players when they do come back into the clubhouse or locker room the following year?
Absolutely. Those guys are going to get chirped, and it's going to be endless. But I'm telling you, this is the hockey thing, and I'm going to make a bold prediction. Not one NHL player will opt out. Not one. You watch. Not one. Because the fraternity of players will never let it go. And, guys, it's a different culture. I'm sorry. The way the hockey guys are, I don't think a single player will opt out. I don't know how you get past it because I never liked looking at my teammates from a business perspective. There were times where guys held out, and I could tell you those guys got chirped hard on the way back in the locker room.
You brought up a really good point there, Valley, what you said. I know, it's hard to distinguish between each sport, but in hockey, for example, that mentality that you talked about, I completely agree with. I don't want to say in other sports or in baseball specifically that players lack that same mentality because they don't at all. But I do think what we're seeing here is a situation where the MLB now has agreed to 60 games. We're seeing a shortened season. We talked about the injury risks early on. If a guy gets injured or sprains something and all of a sudden he's missing a bunch of games, half the season's gone for him. And then you bring in the family perspective as well, which is what a lot of these guys are pointing to, young kids, newborn, maybe older family members at risk. I think that they're just weighing all of these options. And with the MLB specifically, so many things have happened. There's been so much change back and forth, that maybe these guys are just like, you know what, it's not worth it. And while I maybe agree with what your mentality is, I think you got to respect each guy in a case-by-case basis here. Maybe some of these guys really do feel that they're putting their families and themselves at an unnecessary risk just to play a shortened season.
Where I stand right now, Michelle, absolutely, because I'm not in that bubble anymore. I'm not a hockey player anymore, but I'm just telling you that the players that are playing right now, they're there because of two things. They had sacrifice and discipline, and this is all sports, all athletes. They had sacrifice and discipline in their teenage years that nobody else had, right? And that's why they're in a position they're in right now. And I think when you look at the nuts and bolts of this, all these guys have made a lot of money already and they don't want the risk. And I understand that. I understand it. But I'm telling you, and that's, as again, the guy on the outside, if I was playing, I'd have no sympathy. I'd have no empathy because you're not like that when you're playing. I'm telling you, you've got no sensitivity chip in you because you're playing a sport as a warrior, really. And you don't think like that at all. There's no way that I would want anybody on my team to opt out. I would hold a grudge.
I definitely get where you're coming from on that one, Valley, because you do understand that once you go into that locker room, once you go into that theater, that's you and your boys, that's you and your team. And that becomes a much different thing. And, he didn't want to come with us. I totally understand that. But I also think there's going to be a difference here. And this is why I said the NBA should have just stick to the 16 teams, just the playoff teams, keep the bubble tight, and just go play your playoffs and finish it. I think some baseball players look at this going, why are we playing? Like, why are we even bothering if this is going to happen? And maybe we don't even get to a World Series. You're reading about what could relapse in the fall. I think there's too much uncertainty about baseball, the short season, what it means. And, by the way, is there 3 teams that have a legit chance to win this championship? Really? 3. Not everyone else. At least with the other sports, you're going in trying to win a championship. At least, again, a handful of teams that believe it. Hockey might be the one sport where almost everyone jumping into the bubble feels like they've got a shot at winning the cup. I don't think you can say that for any other sport.
Michelle, do you think there's a difference, like for DeAndre Jordan saying, I'm sick and I'm not playing, versus some of these baseball guys who were saying they're not playing for personal reasons? Do you think there's a difference in how these guys are going to be perceived based on the reasons for not playing?
I guess time will tell on that. Honestly, I think this virus has affected everyone, impacted people in all different ways, whether it's economically, whether it's actually affected them, whether they know someone who's contracted it, maybe passed away from it. You can't judge people for their decisions in these unprecedented times. I think that people are going to do what they feel is right for them. And in this moment, whether it is because they got sick and tested positive and don't want to risk maybe getting sick again or passing those germs on to anyone else, or it's someone who's taking the precaution because they've got family members that they're worried about, or that's at least what they're saying, you can't judge them. It's up to them. And we're facing a situation as a country, as a world, that we've never been in before. So I just don't think it's fair to pass judgment in this particular situation.
I don't think we're going to pass judgment. People like us, people that are working in the industry, people that are attending the games, fans, production people, none of us are going to judge the players. And that's definitely not what I'm doing. I'm just telling you, the guys in the room, they're judging.
Even, Steve, if a guy gets sick and doesn't want to play because he's battling or has battled COVID-19, there's no differentiation made into the reason for not playing?
Guys, when you're young, you're playing this sport. You're playing it when you're from, 19 to 35. When we were 19 to 35, how broad of our perspective of the world did we really have, right? It's changed, of course, now for me. I've got 2 young boys. I've been married a very long time, 14 years, and I've got a house, and I've got everything that I want. So yeah, I've got a different perspective now, but I could tell you, as a player, I would have had no tolerance for this conversation. And I'm just saying everybody on the team would have been that way.
All right, up next, we're talking news from the National Football League with Newsday columnist Bob Glauber, and we'll be back with him when we continue next on the MSG 150 at Home, presented by Chase. Stay with us, everybody.